Hello.
Hey, brother.
How you doing?
Good. How are ya?
Yeah, doing pretty good, thanks. Doing pretty good. Yeah, just
Beautiful.
maxing and relaxing. It's a bit hot today, but you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
still
Well,
still just going.
Central
Yeah,
Queensland, eh, bro?
yeah. It says like it was 38, nearly 40 yesterday.
Damn.
So
Damn.
it's hopefully it's a bit cooler today, but lucky I got like a dam just behind me so I could just go for a quick dip and then
Mm.
cool off.
Yeah,
It
you look like you've just been in the drink, cooling off, brother.
yeah, no, I just had a shower actually.
Oh, righto.
And yeah, and the missus just did my hair.
Look,
Lucky,
looking fresh.
yeah, cheers. Lucky I got someone to do my hair, otherwise it'd end up in dreadlocks by now. So
Funny you
it's
say that. I had dreadlocks for 20 years. I shaved them off about 2 or 3 months ago.
oh really?
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
feel without them? Do you feel a bit different without them?
Very different, but to be honest, bro, very freeing, man. It was so good for me to get them
Yeah,
off. It was time. It was
yeah,
time a few years ago. I was going to get rid of them a few years back every summer because
yeah.
I'm from Port Hedland originally, so nice and hot up
Oh yeah,
there as well, in the northwest
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
WA. And every summer, bro, it was like I'm done. I'm getting rid of these things. I've had enough. And the
yeah,
kids
yeah,
would my kids would be like, "No, don't shave them off, Dad. We like them." So I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll leave them for a bit longer." And it
yeah,
got to
yeah,
this year, man, and it was just enough was enough. And my,
yeah,
my,
yeah.
my hairline was suffering. Like I was starting to, I think it's coming back, but I was going like my
Oh,
forehead was
true.
growing. Yeah, my forehead was getting bigger by the day, I reckon. It's like
Yeah, wow.
all that
Yeah,
weight pulling on them. So,
yeah. No, yeah, that's it's pretty crazy. It's I find it like when you end up having like long hair, it's such a thing, a maintenance thing, you just have to keep maintaining it and stuff like that. And I guess that's the good thing about having short hair,
yeah, I'm
it's so much
enjoying it at the
easier.
moment, bro, because it's exactly that. It was like if we go for a swim, I'm like thinking, oh, can I be bothered getting my dreads wet today? Like if
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
shower time, if it's evening, you don't want to get them wet because they won't dry in time, and just shit like that. And I'd have to go and get them
yeah,
like tightened up with the crochet needle every few months as well. It's just I'm
yeah,
enjoying having short hair, but I am probably going to grow it long again. Nah,
yeah, yeah,
we'll see
yeah,
what happens from there. If my hairline recovers fully, that is. So.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought about, I was gonna get dreads, but then I'm like, um, if I have the missus here constantly like taking care of my hair, then because if I leave it for like 4 days, it just starts to dread
Yeah.
already by itself. But then, it's one of those things. Lucky I got the missus here that she can just brush my hair out, and I guess but you become the envy of every woman. You know what I mean? Because
Brother,
they all just
you have a beautiful head of hair. I was gonna mention it anyway. I was gonna mention the hair. It's a fucking beautiful head of hair,
yeah,
and
cheers.
so when I had dreads almost from necessity, like I had them when I was young, but
Yep,
I kind of always in my head had it that I had shit hair. Just it was kind of a bit thin and like I don't know. I just never enjoyed it, and like I've grown into my head a bit, but I got big ears and I had a skinny head as a kid, so I figured like dreadlocks kind of was the best look on me, but.
yep.
You gotta. I'm gonna call it a glorious head of hair on you, bro. So I don't know if you
Yeah,
need
it's like
them.
a little, it's like a lion's mane.
It is.
It's like it just gets better and better as it gets longer and longer into it. Like what's it, day 1200, and my hair was about as short as yours when I first started out here.
Is that what
And
the counting was? Hang on, let me let
yeah,
me let me let me dial the clock back here. Give an intro, and
yep,
then we'll dive into all this stuff because this is good. This is good. We're going straight into it. But I'll give a bit of context to the listeners. So, welcome everybody to episode number 226 of the Average Man Podcast. My guest today is Coods Mac. Coods, I'm looking at your profile there. Says you're a musician. I can tell you're a proud Indigenous man, and from what I can see, you're 100% character. So first of all, appreciate your time today, mate. Really, really, thanks for giving us some time. And basically, I stumbled across your Instagram on around about Australia Day. You put up an Australia Day post that as an Aboriginal Australian man myself as well, I really resonated with your perspective and point of view. And so I went through and scrolled. I like what this fella's got to say. Went through and scrolled through your page as well, and liked a lot of your content there, and really resonated and connected with it. So I got in touch and said, let's tee up this podcast. So let's just give the listeners a quick rundown, mate. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do, what lights you up, and then we'll just roll into it from there.
Yeah, Gurrimulya. My name's Goods, or Gurridulya is my tribal name, which means a wedge-tailed eagle.
Mm.
And I come from Waranungu here, which is inside the Wangan and Yagalingu Nation. It's our own clan estate, tribal autonomous zone that we've basically carved out of our nation state. Um, and so, I come from. I'm where I'm directed is directly west of Mackay.
Okay.
We're about 4 hours directly west of Mackay, so we're in the desert uplands of the central Queensland, and you know, I'm we've been fighting against this coal mining company called Adani for since 2012, and so my family, I've worked in coal mines long before that as well, and I'd seen the destruction that had happened for the years and years and years working in them. And then a mining company come along and said that they wanted to build a mine which is like 10 kilometers down the road to an ancient spring called Dungabulla. And Dungabulla means place of many waters. So this spring has been running since the dawn of time. There's water that pumps out of there that's millions of years old. So the moment that I heard that this mining company wanted to dig near it, then I said to my family, "No, this can't happen." And my father said, "No, we're not going to allow this to happen." And so we've maintained our no position the whole time. And the government, we said no twice as a whole group. And then the mining company has a way of fracturing the group and paying off people in the group to get a vote across the line. So then they fractured the group enough to get enough majority vote to get an agreement across the line. So we've always claimed their approvals as fraudulent for being here. So we've been contesting it ever since. So my father tried to fight this Indian billionaire in 5 federal court cases. He got stung with $675,000 in lawyers' costs that he had to pay Adani. The judge, even though he was a pensioner and they knew that he didn't own a house or anything like that, just so they can take him out and bankrupt him so he can't run any more court cases. So after they bankrupted him, that's when I started coming out here in 2009 on the 26th of August, 2019, and I just came and took a little bit of area back from the mining company, and I built a stone circle inside of it. And
so when you say you took a bit of land back from the mining company, you kind of just come and set up and said, this is where I'm living now.
So I just and
hey brother, sorry, you froze then, mate. Right as you started answering that question, can you just?
Yeah. So we rocked up. We built a circle. The cops rocked up. We said, well, we don't know how long we're going to be here for. And they said, well, what's sacred about that Bora ring? And I said, well, my people built that. What's the difference between my people building it now and building it 2,000 years ago? And they said, well, nothing. I said, exactly. So at that point in time, I'd realized that I had a right in Queensland to have ceremonies with my family. And this was before the Human Rights Act came out. And then after I got squeezed out of there, food and water, because I weren't allowed people in and out of there. Mm-hmm. So I basically starved me out of food and water in this little area until I just got out of there. And then I came back a year later in the 26th of August, 2020, and I built a fire in the middle of the road, a couple of kilometers back from here, and stopped all the Adani workers from using the public road for 5 days. And it was funny because the road wasn't technically closed because they had a little side gate on the side. And I said to the coppers, you blokes and the farmers and the public are more than welcome to use it, but the mining company is not allowed down this road. And so they were just like, yes, sweet. The chief of police rocked up and said to me, is that fire sacred? And I was like, yes, it is. And so, they had to try and negotiate something around this, and they're trying to negotiate and get to a point of trying to figure out what they want from me and what do I want from them and from the government. And so they sat down with me on the fourth day and they said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I want all my national parks, state forests, unallocated state land all given back to my tribe. And then I want all the pastoral leases bought back by the government from the farmers that want to sell them. If they don't want to sell them, they can keep them, but they have to sign an agreement to properly look after those areas. Otherwise, they get compulsory acquired back from the government and give them back to us so we can take the fences down so the emus can run up and down the way that they used to." I said, "I don't want any money. I just want what's mine." And they just looked at me just like, "We can't fulfill that request." So,
What sort of how large an area of land are we talking here, Coods?
oh, we're talking hundreds of thousands of hectares,
Mm.
just say from here to Claremont, it's 145 Ks as a crow flies, but it's 250 kilometers, on the road type of thing. So it's a pretty big area of Wangan and Yagalingu area. It's basically all along the Great Dividing Range out from Mackay.
And this
And so,
spring, this sacred spring that's been running for millions of years, the coal, would you say coal mine? Coal mine has
yeah,
set up. They have built within 10 kilometers of that now.
yep. So there's actually aquifers inside of the mining lease area where they're wanting to dig. And what's happening now is they're having to put dewater. They in most mines they put dewatering bores all along the area of where they're going to blast and dig out. Because what they have to do is they have to actually dig below the water table.
Mm.
So what's happening is they're draining the water table before before where the pit is, so then they can blast it and dig it out
Not
to
flood.
get underneath to
Yeah.
get to the coal and not flood out.
Mm.
The problem, what's happening is that groundwater is being pumped out from Gurrimulya
Mm.
and it's being fed. So then they're just pumping that water out
Draining it.
and and just draining it. And so it's actually they're lowering the water table in Gurrimulya. And if it goes too low, it can go through like systems like that where it needs that constant pressure. And
Mm.
if it goes too low, then it won't be able to push past anymore. And they'll kill the spring.
Yeah.
And so there's a million-plus-year-old spring at stake here that we've had the world's best hydrologists come and investigate that and do a full peer review study of all the water hydrology and able to test water now through radioisotopes. And they can actually test how old water is and where it's being fed from.
Wow.
So this new technology now is going to change the way we see water tables.
Mm.
Because to Aboriginal people, the water tables have always been there. We knew that they were there.
Mm.
Through the stories of the rainbow serpent, through Mundagata, how they went underneath the ground.
Mm.
And so we know that water had come out in other places, that it's going in the ground and then coming out in different places.
Mm.
And so, we have a judicial review in it at the moment with the judge. We're waiting back to hear from a decision of whether they're going to put an environmental protection order on the mine, because the Department of Environment and Science don't want to act on it, because if to act on it means they have to close the mine down.
Mm.
So to close the mine down, it means that like they're going to get sprayed from the Liberal Party and from the Minerals Resource Council and all of these people that they're helping to prop up an Aboriginal and all of this type of stuff, and they're stopping work and all this type of stuff, even though it's destroying a spring.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have no integrity about themselves. They can go, this has nothing to do with the Aboriginal people. They're destroying a spring, and you're not allowed to destroy nature. Sorry.
Mm.
So we're in this predicament now that we're waiting for the courts to have to make a decision. But in this meantime, being here, after that fire on the road, I came here then on the August 22nd, on 2022, sorry, on August 26th. So the third year in,
Mm-hmm.
as I rocked up here onto a berm wall just out the opposite side of the pit. So along the Moray Carmichael boundary road, you've got the pit on one side, and then on the other side, you've got a fire, where I've got a fire lit. So on the 26th of August, 2022, me and my family rocked up to this area We lit a fire, built a circle around it, and we made 3 rules. 1, the fire always has to stay lit. 2, there's no foreign objects inside the circle, so you can't wear your shoes, you can't wear your hat, can't wear watches, can't wear anything like that. That was to trip the police up. So if the police were coming up to remove me from the circle, they would have walked into the circle with their boots on, see? So you entrap them. So then we had those 2 rules. And then the 3rd rule was we had to have one Wangananyagalingu person inside the circle at all times. So for 408 days, we had one person inside that circle at all times, which was basically me throughout the whole day, all night. Like I would switch in between all the family members that would come. But we had about 30 to 40 different family members come up and hold space in that circle throughout that whole 408 days. You know, there's no shelter over the top. So rain, hail, or shine, there was someone inside that circle. And so it proved to the government of pure occupation, because a fire is the world's oldest symbol of occupation. Innately inside of every human being, the moment that they see a fire, they know that someone lit it, because it can't feed itself. And it doesn't arrange itself in that type of order. So these are the things that I play on their minds now through having this fire constantly going. You know, because it's constantly going, they have this mental thing that someone's home. Someone's home. So, you know, 1,292 days now that I've been here, sitting opposite across the coal mine. And where I am right now, we call it Gurrimulya, which is Waterhole 1. And basically, where we're set up is we're just south of where they want to build the second pit. But because we're here, they can't build it. And so to remove me now, because the police removed us in 2022, my father put in a human rights complaint to the Human Rights Commission. First people in Queensland to use the Human Rights Act.
Oh, really?
And we used it against the police. And we folded the police over, and then they had to write a notice of regret.
So what is that? What is that act? Could you give us a rundown of it? You have to say it by the letter of the law, but just what is the act entail?
So in Queensland, we have a Human Rights Act, and this Human Rights Act is basically revolving around the UN DRIP or even the Universal Declaration Rights of Indigenous People. And so basically it gives us the right under Section 28 of the Queensland Human Rights Act. It gives us the right to practice culture, redevelop culture. It gives us the right to not be forcefully assimilated. And it gives us the right to protect our waterways, our country, and our coastal seas. So all of these things involved gives us the right to be who we want to be. And so whilst being here, I'm saying I have the right to be this person. And because I'm doing this on Crown land means Crown, all I said to them was, this guy might have a lease, but nobody has the deeds and titles to the ownership of the property. I said, my ownership comes from my stories of Dungmabula and my stories of Twin Hills, which is and we're smack bang right in the middle of it. So it's like, well, if I can tell you the stories of these surroundings, that gives you my geolocation of where I come from. So then that tells you that these stories are pre-invasion. And because they're pre-invasion, that means that I hold the intellectual property rights. So I said to them, I hold the rights, and the rights are entrusted in me and my people. Unless you prove that you have a legitimate land claim to this area, and at what point in time did your government purchase this land off my people? Because you can't say that you took it by radical title, because that's a false statement. You have to make a claim of what point in time did the Queensland government annex our country, annex Wangananyagalingu country, annex this little area right here. If you can't prove it, then I'm going to assume that it's still my property. People can make all assumptions that Australia is what it is now and everything is in the past, but I just I put a stick inside of the front wheel of the push bike called Australia. Because if everyone was supposed to be like, oh, well, you're defeated now, you've been conquered. How am I still here, brother? 292 days later, 1,292 days later, and I'm still here questioning the status quo, saying that if it is yours now, prove it is yours. Otherwise, you're just in possession of stolen property.
Mm.
It doesn't matter whether it was 20 years ago, 2 years ago, or 200 years ago. Theft is still theft. So unless they can prove it, I'm going to continue to sit here. But you can only attest it is when you're standing on your own 2 feet and attesting it yourself and saying, I'm not going to let you have this property because I'm from here. I'm the bloodline connected person that is the autochthonous person that doesn't come from anywhere else but here. My DNA comes from here because my people have eaten the dirt, which has microbes in it that changes your gut biome and you become your surrounding. The more that you eat the plants, the more that you eat the animals that are in your surroundings, you become endemic to those areas. That's why I say to the police, I have no other home. This is my only home. Everywhere else, I'm a fish out of water. Everywhere else, I feel lost because they're trying to force me into someone else's nation to go and live. You know, they can't force me into the cities because that's some other mob's nation. You know, Mackay, Yui Barak, I can't. That's still other mob. You know what I mean? Like or Durham and then in Rockhampton. You know, they can't force me to go someone else's tribe because that's ethnic cleansing, and it's forcefully assimilating me. And they can't do that because of the Human Rights Act. So to repeal the Human Rights Act now is to limit my rights. So then I can then put in a racial discrimination case against the Queensland government for taking away the Human Rights Act because of me. You see? So they can't take it away now. What's done is done.
So, brother, 1,292 days. So what? So just to clear, I want to try and clear up the time frame here. So you came first in 2019.
Yep.
And they removed you from the area. Then you came back in 22 and you lit the fire. And then the fire burnt for 408 days, and somebody manned that fire continuously that whole time. Then, since that period, so and then there was a gap in between that period of time, and then you've come back and reestablished.
No, sorry. 2019, I built the first circle.
Yep.
And the fire. And that was on freehold title. So that was a little area where they'd annexed from us. So that was in 2019. Then in 2020, I built the fire on the road. And then 2021, I built the fire out the front here. Sorry. Okay. And then been here since 2021.
Right.
So
and that fire burns. That fire burns night and day.
Yeah, man, non-stop. I got 2 of them. I've got one here out the back here, and I've got one out the front. So I've got a backup fire. So if one goes out, I just light the ashes off the other one.
Yeah, yeah. And what's out there? What are you like? I can see you got some. You're under some shade and stuff. Like where are you living? Yeah. What do you got out there, bro?
So where we are, it's like. There's box trees here, man, that are like 600-700 years old, man, that don't grow anywhere else. They're all like, what can I say? Old growth, basically.
Yep.
Here's a bit of the
You got the blurred. You got your blurred background.
How do you take that off?
On a phone, I'm not sure. It'd be down in the where it says video. If you can see the video icon. And then it'll be your background.
Effects, there we go.
There we go. Look at that.
Yeah, so we got a big water hole here. But all the trees out in the back, they're all like real old growth ironbarks and stuff like that. They still got a heap of scar trees and stuff. Babies, like my nieces and nephews, placentas into the trees again, we used to do. So in our area here, what we do is the morning of the child's birthday, we'll cut a hole in the tree that we're like facing the sunrise. So we'd cut a hole in the tree so the sun is coming up on the back of the tree. So then what happens is throughout the year, the sun does a figure 8 loop. And it comes up, it goes across, and then it goes across again. So then the sun then tracks past that tree twice, once on your birthday and once on the 6-month interval. So
Ah.
then when the sun comes back to that area, it's your birthday. So now you have a date and time.
Yeah, that's
So you
cool.
know what time of the year it is. But also because you've cut it towards the sun, that when you're looking at the sky, you're facing east.
Mm,
So now you have your compass too.
mm.
So now you know where you are in the bush.
Wow, that's cool.
So, so not only that is when you put the placenta into the tree consumes the placenta. It takes that DNA, it sends it down the tree into the mycelium, and that mycelium then sends that across to the next tree, to the next tree, to the next tree, to the next tree,
Mm,
until the whole surrounding area then knows your DNA. So then you
mm,
become genetically a part of that area. A lot of the English system is built off maritime law,
mm,
and maritime law states that you're lost at sea.
mm,
But see, with us, we're not lost at sea because we're anchored to land now,
mm,
because our babies are being anchored back into trees.
mm.
So how can we be lost at sea when we can come back and see the placenta?
I love that concept. I love that whole thing. So it gives you a birthday.
Yep,
It gives you a compass to show you where east
yep,
is, and then feeding the lifeblood, the DNA, the
yeah,
spirit of the person back into the ground and through the mycelium network,
that's
spread
it.
out and fed to all the other
Yep.
trees in the area. That's cool, man. That's really cool. So I
You
can
become
see,
one with you become one with your surroundings.
mm, I can
And
see
that's what it's really all about.
in the background there. So you got a bunch of tents and shelters
Yeah,
set up, and I guess what are
got
you running off
chickens
battery
and stuff.
systems and stuff? You got chickens out there,
Yeah, little chicks and got like 8 dogs and stuff like that. Got um
and how many of you are camped up out there?
usually it's me and my older nephew Gundulu. He's um just visiting some family at the moment. At the moment it's just me and my partner, Sonny. Um that I had my sister and her um niece, but they're all coming back up again in a couple of weeks.
So quite often it's
But
just you and your partner out there for
yeah,
days
yeah,
or weeks on
basically.
end.
Yeah, yeah. Or some I have my stepdaughter out here as well.
Yeah,
Um she's been out here since she was like 12, so
yeah.
she's grown up out bush. And it's good that I don't need a lot of people,
Mm.
because I'm merely saying to the government and that now that we have our babies' placentas into those trees, because I don't have any kids. There's all my nieces and nephews and stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry. And what I'm saying now to the government is I'm not the one that you take away and everything falls apart,
Mm.
because the rights are no longer entrusted into me. They're entrusted into the next generation, and their placentas are in these trees.
Mm.
I'm merely just guarding these places.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to take me away, you have to realize that I'm going to fight you for these trees.
Mm.
And if you want to go down this road of frontier warfare still continuing on in the 21st century, then I suggest you fuck off and don't fucking come near me in my trees.
Mm.
And so I said, I'm merely looking after them until the next generation comes along, and that's their responsibility now to look after them for the next generation.
Yeah.
So then it's no longer something about me. It's not
Mm.
it's not a
Mm.
selfish act about me. It's about someone else. And no one ever goes to jail for a selfless act.
No, it's not selfish, brother. You may be carrying the torch, but it's a drawing a line in the sand moment, and people, all peoples need leaders, right? So what you're
Yeah.
doing is expressing that you're being a leader in this situation. You're standing up for your people, and like you said, protecting something so the next generation can come and enjoy it and continue to learn and be connected to
Yeah.
that culture as well. How it sounds like you are carrying a lot of the doing a lot of the heavy lifting on your shoulders. How much support and do you get from your wider community and the tribe and like your dad's still involved in it and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, look, I all my family support what I do, and they all out at intervals throughout the year. The only thing is that we don't have great amenities out here, and
Mm,
a lot of my family is so assimilated into everyday life now that they find the luxuries of life too hard to go without now. Like flushable toilets, or even like air condition when it's like summertime.
mm,
But they all support what we're doing because they understand it's for a bigger purpose.
So here's
You
a
know.
question for you, Kuds.
Yeah.
Something that I think about, I think a lot of people think about often. You just mentioned the luxuries of life, right? Which
Mm.
which which also inevitably come with the complexities and stresses of life, right?
Yeah.
We know there's been a trade-off of sorts for lifestyle and, freedom, essentially, and
Yeah.
autonomy, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people surround themselves in, a lot of people are on this eternal search for comfort, right?
Yeah.
Comfort. And my belief is that comfort is the big killer. Comfort's what, you die when you get too comfortable. That's what happens in old age and
Yeah.
retirement, right? So we're in this search for comfort, but there's so many trade-offs and so many people are stressed. We all know about the rat
Hmm.
race, and we all know
Yep.
about, people working huge hours, missing out on actually being there with their families, which is the reason they're working in the first place, to support their families. So there's
Yep.
this massive trade-off for society and lifestyle. Now, you mentioned it's hot out there. You don't have amenities. There must be long lengths of time where you're just on your own, and there's without
Mm.
entertainment as sorts. So, how have you found the trade-off for society's daily
Yeah.
comforts and luxuries for
Yeah.
your happiness and contentedness?
Well, I learned to love to lay in the dirt. I learned to enjoy it. I learned to just sleep next to a fire and have nothing else. I learned to enjoy the things that I have right now. I'm a qualified mechanic. I did my apprenticeship at Holden in Brisbane, and I was one of those gun mechanics. And I had my own performance workshop. I started a mechanic performance workshop called Gunmetal Garage, working on like GTRs and doing like Skyline engine conversions into Hiluxes and stuff like that. And I enjoyed all the luxuries of life. I've had all these things before, and there's nothing new out there that really attracts me. A house in itself, I could have built a house by now, but I understand what a house is. If you look up in your house right now, you'll see up in the top, when you look up to the roof, you'll see a corner, and then you'll see another corner, and then you look behind you, you'll see another corner, another corner. And then you look down on the ground and you see a corner, 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 corner. You're trapped in a cage. You just don't realize it. That your own cage is what you've built for yourself. It's just that you own the key that you can come in and out of your cage. But you can't go anywhere else because you know that that's your cage. You have to keep going to work because you have to pay for your cage. Houses like that have only been around for like since the 15th, 16th century. You know what I mean? Like, how long have people been living in huts that had like circle roofs and things like that? It's the way that things have been designed to force people to go to work. And it's a house that forces people to go to work because they have to get like a 30-year mortgage and things like that. You know what I mean? Like, but I haven't paid rent or rates or anything in 1,292 days. That the council could have come along by now and just went, oh, sanitation or whatever, and tried to get me out of here. But they chose the paths of least resistance. They decided to be friends with me, and then just put their hands up to Adani and go, we're not going to do anything.
Mm.
So what I've done then is I've went, okay, well, how do I find my comfort through freedom? And so what I've done here is I've created a space right here where um, I'm not, they say there's death and taxes and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But like this place here, I can avoid taxes. I can avoid their system because I can say everything inside of here is the business of Waranungu and everybody that is in here. And the cops respect that.
Mm.
The cops don't come in here. We got a massive, massive big flag waving out the front, not an Aboriginal flag, but our own flag.
Mm.
And it's got an emu footprint on it, and it's got a little eel on it. I'm wearing a T-shirt with our flag on it in some of my videos and stuff like that. But we've got a flag like that that's like 3 meters long, just flat, waving out the front. And when the cops did used to come, they would stand there at that flag and they wouldn't come past it
Mm.
because they understood that it was we were a separate nation.
Mm.
You see, when you fly your own flag, it means individuality. It means that we're not here flying the Aboriginal flag, so you can't treat us like an Aboriginal. You see, we created our own identity. The Australian government destroyed our native title. So we were the Wangan and Yagalingu people, because Wangan means Claremont, means the box tree. And Yagalingu is the Yaga people, the climbers along the Great Dividing Range. And so they destroyed our claim and said that, well, if you don't change your name from Wangan and Yagalingu to Claremont Beliando native title claim, then you're not going to get your native title, even though we didn't. But they forced the group to change their name. I was out in the bush when they made that decision. But, they ethnic cleansed us. Our name's not even out there anymore. And it's just like they did that because I caught them. I caught them in a contract that called a notice of rebuttal, rebutting all laws against them, and then said that now that you can't prove ownership, I need you to put all of our properties into this trust, into the Wangan and Jagalingu People's Trust. And because it's called Wangan and Jagalingu People's Trust, they destroyed our name to get out of the contract. Yeah. And so I've caught this government into a contract where they have no out, and they've acquiesced by silence. In this country, there's a doctrine called the doctrine of laches, Laches, laches and acquiescence. Mean if you allow time to progress without properly taking proper steps to rectify this, then you have led them to believe that there is no problem. Meaning that I've been here this whole time and no one has taken me to court, so they've led me to believe that it's mine again.
Acquiescence by silence.
Yep. Acquiescence by silence. So they've agreed. Just because they didn't say yes or no, by saying nothing, silence is agreeance.
Yeah.
And they understand that type of stuff. And they've traveled too far down this road now that because the police have written a notice of regret saying, we recognize that Mr. Adrian Burugaba, which is my old man, represents a group of Wangan and Yagalingu people aggrieved by Adani's occupation of their tribal homelands. They wrote that after they removed us in 2020 when we had the fire on the road. They removed us from our camp and said, well, if you don't leave, you're going to get arrested. So then we once we got that piece of paper, I was like, what can I do now that I've got the cops by the balls, basically? So I created this event called the Tour de Carmichael. And this Tour de Carmichael event, I got 100 push bike riders to ride down this 100-kilometer dirt road that Adani was using for his trucks. And I just got 100 push bike riders and we called it the Tour de Carmichael. And we just like slowly pedaled down this 100-kilometer road and spent like 3 days getting down to the thing and just like holding up his trucks and all that type of shit. Just shit stirring, man. And the cops called me and said, oh, we heard you're going to do an event. My boss is just wondering, are you going to get a permit? I'm like, why do I need a permit to ride my push bike to my home where I was living? Sorry, all of these people are just riding their push bikes down to where I'm living as well. So if you want to give us a fine, that's fine, but I'll put in another complaint to the Human Rights Commission. And they're like, oh, no, it's okay. We can work all this out. Then next minute, we've got like a pilot vehicle. We've got a vehicle behind us.
They organised it all.
They organised it all. And I didn't have to get anything. No permits, no nothing.
So it sounds like you've actually got a pretty amicable relationship with the local council and the police, right? They as much as they can be, they understand your position and they're giving you the space to do your work.
Yeah, well, because I'm always very friendly with them and I'm very respectful, and I say to them, look, I'm going to respect you, but you need to respect me. You've got a job to do, but I also have a job to do as well. So we both need to understand that before we start going ahead. And they've all, they've gotten down to that level. They've understood the fact that there is no stopping.
Yeah.
That they can't stop me from doing what I'm doing because it's my home and I'll continue to keep coming back. So they can create an enemy out of themselves, you know what I mean? Like to me, but they don't want to. And so they would rather just let it be, And so they've said to Adani, the police have said, and the police minister has said, that if you want to remove me from here, then you have to take me to the land court. But they won't take me to the land court because I had already placated the president of the land court. For the first time ever, she came out onto country and I did an on country hearing for the Clive Palmer mine because that's in our country as well.
Yeah, right.
And I smoked her in and gave her all of this thing of like how we're connected to all these animals and to the trees. And each skin group has their own class and their own trees. And then she just looked at me and just went, thank you, and shook my hand. And then when she got in the court, she looked at me and gave me this little smirk, and then just I knew we'd won, eh?
Yeah.
And then she was just like, she made the ruling that human rights can't be limited for economic benefit.
Mm.
So that means that they can't move me from here for an economic benefit, which means for a mine.
Bonding. Well, that's a good lady that she saw to the
Yeah.
heart of that and stood up for it in court.
Yep. 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 It's one of those things that she set the precedence,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so regardless of who gets in power here, regardless of who gets in power in the federal government, the federal government could come in and go, okay, well, we're going to just take him out. I've still got the Human Rights Act in Queensland.
Mm.
But then, like I said, if they take away the Human Rights Act in Queensland, then we've got Racial Discrimination Act, which is federal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You're pretty
I've
well
got,
versed in this stuff, Coeds.
you have to be, bro.
Yeah.
You,
When did this interest start? Obviously, your dad's
my
an
whole life, bro.
activist. Yeah, your dad's an activist too, right? So
Yeah,
you were really
yeah,
brought up on country, connected to country, knowing your history, knowing your story. See, look, my family's from New South Wales, so out near
yep,
Trangie, Dubbo, Wiradjuri people. But I grew up in Perth and Port Hedland and Karratha up in the
yeah,
Pilbara. Not connected to the people there or the country there, and certainly in Perth. I spent 25 years in Perth, and as with most cities, I suppose, the Aboriginal people there have very little connection to their culture and country, and they're
yeah,
just desecrated by it when
yep,
when settlers came. So
yep,
to hear that there's so much rich culture still being taught and practiced, and that
mm,
I'm hoping that there's younger people in your family and in your tribe as well
yeah,
who are passionate about this and learning from the likes of you and the other elders as well. It's just
yep,
I just love that, mate. So this was something that you were always brought up with and were always connected
yep,
to.
yeah. So I mean, I haven't always grown up in the bush. Like I was born in Townsville, and then I spent a long time in Brisbane.
Yep.
I was born in Townsville. My mum's from Tassie. She's a Palawa Pakana lady
Mm.
from Tassie.
Oh yeah.
And so my oldest brother was born in Tassie. Then I was born in Townsville, and then we went back to Tassie for my two sisters, and then to Brizzy. And so from there, then from a little kid, I can remember just coming up to visits up to country. But it was more so like learning their system. I had to learn their education.
Mm.
I had to learn everything about them. When I said to the negotiators in 2019, and they sat down with me and I said, "You're never going to beat me." You know why? Because you know nothing about me.
Mm.
But I know everything about you.
Mm.
I've studied my whole life acts and legislations to fight this government. I'm the next generation of frontier warriors that took over the flame from the Michael Andersons and all the ones that did the 10 Embassy and all of those people that I'm paving the new way because they didn't have this chance to do it.
Mm.
This just wasn't possible 10 years ago,
Mm.
but it is now because of the Human Rights Act.
Mm.
And from me doing this, it's created a spur-on effect all across the whole country now.
The ripples.
Yeah, yeah. And because, I merely just have social media now, which changes the game.
Yeah.
They can't just come in here like people are like, oh, what if they just come in and like, I've got social media with a live stream. You don't think that I won't just like live stream that all
Yeah.
for everyone to see
Yeah.
and then put in a racial discrimination case against the police? We've already got one human rights complaint against them.
Mm.
Another one goes straight to court
Mm.
because it's targeting. Once as an anomaly, twice as a pattern.
Mm.
You see, so they're very careful on what they want to do.
Mm.
When you create yourself into an echidna, nobody wants to touch you.
Mm.
You know, I've I've thought about it my whole life, and I knew this was my destiny and what I had to do.
I was just
You
going to
know
ask you
why?
that. I was just going to ask you that, bro. This has become your life's
It-
passion.
yeah, it's because no one else is going to do it, bro.
Yeah.
It's because no one else is going to show other Aboriginal people how to do it.
Mm.
It's the fact, like, think about this for a second. How many Aboriginal people do you know that care for wildlife? Not many, eh?
As a percentage, yeah, yeah.
Not many.
Do you
You
know
know
what
why?
upsets? Do you know what upsets?
They
Do you know what
because they
upsets me, bro?
disconnected us from it.
Yes, because you know what upsets me.
Mm.
It's quite often the opposite. It's quite often a big mess
Yep,
left behind, and that upsets me.
yep, yep. And that's the thing, you know what I mean? Like, they've stripped everything from us.
Mm.
Everything, you know what I mean? They removed us from our homes. They put a gun into my grandfather's face in 1918, just down the road in near Blackhole, because they ran from Claremont. And he got put into the Sherbrooke mission from 1918 up until 1957, where he was able to swindle his way out of the mission because his daughter had swallowed cayenne pepper, so he had to take the family to the Brisbane, to be next to the Brisbane hospital. But he could read and write perfect
Mm.
because his father could, because he was a roo shooter, and he
Mm.
had to collect his mail and pay from the post office.
Yeah,
So, you know, we were an intelligent people that tried to get out of being a part of that system
yeah.
for since my great grandfather. You know what I mean? Um, since settlers first came out, like, they settlers didn't come out to central Queensland until 1863.
Mm.
So my grandfather was born in 1860. My great great grandfather was born in 1860, before the wagon wheels even turned up out here.
Mm.
And 1860 is not even that far off. Like, Treaty of Waitangi was basically signed. You know what I mean? Like,
Do,
um,
do you know what I love about this, Coons, is the one's your passion for sure.
yep,
Like, I mean, if you if you're not living with passion, you're missing the point of life in in my opinion. And whatever that
yep,
purpose and that passion is
yep,
for each person, you got to find it. You got to find it. When you
yep,
do, you're on a mission. But also,
yep,
I believe in grassroots change. I believe that
yep.
change isn't going to come from the government. It doesn't come
No way.
from grants and handouts. And hey, don't get me
No.
wrong, there's communities that need that help because they're not
Yep,
in a good state
yep,
to look after themselves right now, and they need help. I understand
yep,
that, but I believe the real change comes from within the communities, and
yep,
it comes from people like yourself leading the way, teaching the next generation. We protect the kids and get them through school. We get them through educated
yep,
without harm and not around abuse and alcohol abuse and those sorts of things. We get the kids through the school and we teach them the things that you're passionate about. That's not going to be
yep,
everyone's calling, but we just teach them, and then they
yeah,
go back into the communities and they show
yep,
a larger sample size of what can be done with your life, and then that
yeah,
just ripple effect grows on, right? So I love that
yep,
you're there taking the torch, really,
yep,
really, you've educated yourself on all this stuff, on how to deal with governments and talk to governments and how to play that
yep,
game, because you have to be
yeah,
versed in your, I don't want to say enemies, but in your opponents,
yep,
the way they do business, and you're
yep.
now using that to to stand up for your rights and what you're passionate about.
Yep.
I love it,
And
mate.
also
I
teach
really love
others,
it.
you know what I mean? Like, and that's the main thing about teaching others.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to create things that can span off past my lifetime.
Mm.
How do we get everyday Aussies, for instance, to care for country? And how you do that is you start to teach every single child to pick a native animal that is them, that looks like their behavior and what they do, that
Mm.
you feel that that's you, and they are you.
Mm.
And so what happens is, if every child picks their totem, then they have this connection to that one animal and that one animal's habitat. So if they like that animal, then they have to keep that animal's habitat. So what that does is changes this mentality of people that are living here. If they want a Westminster system and they want a system that is like London, then they can go to London.
Mm.
But we can try a different way here, in a different system where people are a part of nature. And it's this. I guess just trying to get people back to that fact. Even Many Aboriginal people are assimilated into everyday life. You know what I mean? And then they wonder why there's so many suicide rates are so high in Aboriginal people. It's because they're forcing them into a lifestyle that they're just not made for.
Mm.
You know, they're forcing them into a system that is foreign to them.
Mm.
And so it's like, well, how do we accommodate this now and move forward where they they have the ability to be who they want to be, you know,
And that comes back, Coods, to grassroots change, right? Because a lot of
yep,
damage is done through well-meaning people who don't understand the people they're trying to help. So,
exactly.
they need to ask more questions, but also more Aboriginal people need to stand up and become leaders and show the way, right?
Yeah,
So it's
yep,
and I wanted to get to this. It's both sides, right? Like
yep,
change happens when both sides are willing to put the work in, both sides.
yeah,
And
yep,
you also said something before about leaving a legacy and leaving a mark that lasts beyond your lifetime. And the saying goes that real change happens when men
mm,
plant seeds whose trees they will never sit in the shade of.
that's it. Yep,
You
that's it.
know, you
It's the
can't
same.
think
It's,
short term. It's not everything. We can't
yeah,
just live in a short term society and expect to have real change and a real future for our kids, right? And
exactly,
grandkids.
exactly. You know, there's some people that they talk about their great seventh great grandfather and
Mm,
what they had achieved. You know what I mean? And it's like people people live off legacies
mm,
where I'm the type of
mm,
person that want to try and create a legacy, you know what I
mm,
mean? Because my father has already created so much that I'm already like in the shadow of him,
mm.
you know what I mean? That um it's my turn to create things as well, you know, and I wouldn't be who I am without my father, of course, and the walking in his shadow basically to get to where I am.
Mm.
Um, but it's about having that mentality because I don't have kids. It's just like, well, how do I how do I spread something positive off into the future that people can go, that's that was his doing.
I
Um,
resonate with that, Coods. My father as well was a very influential and powerful man in his community. He built schools and churches
yep,
and made a big difference in a lot of people's lives. And you know, we butted heads a lot growing up. He was a hard
yep,
man to be around at times, but the shadow that he cast and the example that he set for me is certainly something that I've always challenged myself to exceed. And I think that's what you want your kids to do, right?
yeah, that's it. And I think that's what happens when you have this when you have a proactive dad.
Mm,
You know, when you have someone there shining this torch that you get to stand behind.
mm.
You know what I mean? And a lot of people then have their launch pad off because of their father. They're like, "Oh, you're old mate's son. Oh, you're all
It's
right."
harder. It's harder. I'd say the majority is actually great men usually have weak sons because
Yeah,
they live on the laurels of, or they could never live up to, or because
yeah,
sometimes the dad's just overbearing. He's a great man, but he's
yep,
not a good father, so they just trample their
yeah,
own kids. That happens more often. It's not easier to create something with your life because you had a powerful or influential father. But it certainly is an example that can be followed if you're ready to put the work in.
yeah. You know, like when I started getting up a little bit, the old man started getting a bit antsy. That like, you know, I was ga gaining more traction instead of he was. And then I said to him one day, I said, a master will always teach his apprentice to be better than him. Because if he doesn't teach his apprentice to be better than him, then he's not a good master.
Yeah, and that
So
resonated.
yeah, yeah. It's like you expect me to be better than you
Mm,
because that's what achieving is. That's what being better is because you know then it's the on-flow effect.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, yeah.
because the
Imagine,
next
imagine
person I
putting all
expect,
your effort and energy into teaching your kids, and then they cap themselves just short of your potential. You'd
yeah,
be like,
it,
"Oh, come on,
yeah,
son. There's more there."
yeah, exactly. It's like being a kung
Oh,
fu master and
and you can never
trying
beat
to
your
teach
master.
your thing, but
Yeah.
never beat him because he always just holds back that little bit of extra information.
And then the kung fu gets weaker and weaker and weaker
Yeah.
until it
Yeah.
peters out.
Exactly. Yep.
because it's never reaching it's never reaching the heights of the fathers before. I
Yep.
love that. I
That's it.
love that. I love the kung fu analogy.
Yep. And so now he's proud, you know what I mean? He's
Mm,
proud that there's not many fathers out there that can say that their son's on the front line fighting for country.
yep.
Um, and many people go away fighting in wars for like 10 years, man, as
Mm,
soldiers.
mm,
You know, and I have no problem being here on the front line because I understand it's for the whole family and for the next generation, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have this property title thing in my mind, you know what I mean? This is just a piece of land that just will stay this way.
And to
And
quickly go back to what we spoke about as well, do you feel peace inside you that when you're on
yeah,
land, away from all the craziness of the rat race of the cities and the
yeah.
towns and the bullshit?
To tell you the truth, man, I was an angry person before I came here.
Really?
I was angry at life. I was angry
You
that
don't seem
I
like
was,
an angry man.
yeah, I was angry at the government, man. I
Mm,
was angry just listening to the stories of the oppression that my grandfather and great grandfather had just endured.
mm,
And then my grandmother being a slave as a dormitory, having to work for racist people in these um, outback stations and stuff like that. You know, who knows the fucking trauma that she had to go through
yeah.
to get to where she was, you know what I mean? And it's just that anger had built inside of me that I was just like, I was ready to tear the whole system apart because just for vengeance, you know what I mean?
Mm,
Vengeance for my whole family because I watched my whole family become alcoholics. All my
yeah.
uncles and aunties just drank their lives away because our family got torn apart,
Yeah.
you know, and that's colonization of what happens, you know. And then, so I had this built up anger that I was like, I was so ready to just go out and just start tearing everything down. And then when I got here and I realized that no one wanted to go to war with me, because
Mm,
I seriously wanted to just go to war with the government, I was ready to just have a full on battle with the, all right, old gorilla. If you really want to fuck around, let's find out.
mm.
But they left me alone, man. They said, we don't want to roll this track, you know, and that anger left. I just went, well, I've got my homelands back now.
And would you say you had a lot of time to just sit and
And think
reflect
about
and
it.
process things and think about and look, bro, it's you're finding out the hard way
Yep,
that it is harder and takes more time to build something than it is to just
yep,
tear it down, right? And that's
yeah, yeah, yep,
that anger at the world, that's just that tear down mentality, right? Like I
yep,
just want to
yep,
fucking tear it all down, which
yep,
feels justified when you're angry and it's easier option, but it's harder to build something lasting like you're doing, right?
yep. Yeah, exactly, you know. And now I have the feeling of, you know, I'm not angry at anybody. I'm in myself, I'm glad I've got this little area now. It might not be the whole rest of my homelands that we
Mm,
used to have, but it's something
mm,
that I don't have to be angry at the government anymore. You know what I mean?
mm,
Like I have no anger towards w- colonization anymore and, what's happening because I can choose to not be a part of that system anymore. And
mm,
so can my family. You know, they don't have to live in the city if they don't want to.
mm,
It's just, you know, once they realize that, then they'll realize that they're actually free out here because this is one of the most freest places.
mm,
You know, if we don't get like you're in the city, man, like if the cops can just rock straight up to your house and
mm,
just knock straight on your door
mm.
without it, like they can just harass you every time you leave your house.
And not to mention the other shit that goes on around in the
Yeah,
neighborhood and at the
and
streets and at
yeah,
the shops and on the news and
that's
just
it.
bullshit. It's just noise,
Yep.
noise, noise all the time.
You have and as an indigenous person, you are such at risk more of going to jail than anybody
Mm,
else.
yeah.
You know, we only make up 3 to 4% of the population, but we make up like 33% of the prison systems
Mm,
because they're trying to judge a goldfish by its ability to climb a tree.
yeah. Yeah.
That, you know, and
And like you
that's
said,
not.
people living in areas and in conditions in ways that actually doesn't connect with their soul, but they're not aware enough to realize that. So what you're
Yeah,
doing, I would say from the outside looking in, it appears like you're inadvertently, or maybe you've thought about this, but you're building a sanctuary in the country that you're
yep,
from for people to, when they get
Yep.
to that point of enough's enough, I need to go out bush, I need to go out and get some rest and some peace. They may come out there and
Yep.
go, wow, this resonates. I want to stay here. I want to help Kuds in this fight, in this
Yep.
battle. And then that may really feel like home to them when they get out there, because you're building something for them to come to.
That's it, brother. Building an ark, and
Mm.
not only just for
Big land
my
arc.
family, but it's for everybody else as well. That I know, because it won't be long, man, till everything starts to collapse.
Mm.
These boom and bust societies that are based off this Roman system are made to boom and bust every 250 years.
Mm.
And so who knows what's going to happen if this country's economy just dives down, and then you look at what happens at the supermarkets when there's a cyclone or something like that, and everything
Yeah.
just gets stripped off the shelves, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, how is anyone supposed to survive in the cities? Where do
Yeah.
you find something to eat? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, at least here, you've still got like thousands of hectares that you can grow crops if you want, or you can go and catch a kangaroo,
Yeah, you're hunting
or
out
what.
there?
Not really, man. Like, I don't really eat much meat anymore. I'm like, um, I'm just trying to grow the kangaroos up here because there's not that many at the moment.
Right.
But I do eat kangaroo and stuff like that. But um, you know, people people find their connection from hunting.
Mm.
I find my connection from watching
Mm.
and learning. We've always been observers, and we
Mm.
just observe nature. So I need them to watch them. And whilst observing them, then we figure out who we are. Because law, Aboriginal law, is based off interactions of animals,
Mm.
how animals interact, how trees interact with each other. These things are instincts. So instincts can be relied upon because they don't change.
Mm.
So then
Mm.
laws can be made from, say, I go, oh, well, why do we have this law? Well, it's because of that animal. Why do we have this law? Well, it's because of that animal. So then you can say to your children that I didn't make the rules. The father looks after his children because of the emu does,
Mm.
and so we didn't make those rules. The emu did.
Mm.
So then they can't be contested by saying, oh well, some lunatic just made up those rules.
Mm.
Where they've just always been there. That's why this system here has been running for so long, because it just made sense.
Yeah.
It didn't put us above the animal kingdom. It's the moment that religion comes involved, is that we put ourselves on a pedestal, that we think that we are higher than animals because our God gives us every seed bearing plant.
Mm.
But it's like, who why do we have the right to have every plant?
Mm.
In our culture, we had class systems where we had 4 different class systems where each class had their own plants and had their own trees to give equal distribution.
Mm.
So then how can I have every seed bearing plant then if it's not for me and I'm not allowed to have it because there needs to be balance? Um, these things play on my mind where I'm like, well, a system that has been running here for so long would have to be almost near perfect
Mm.
for it to maintain itself for so long,
Yeah.
because most of the time humans will then eventually create this accumulation of wealth syndrome
This is exactly what I
where,
was thinking. Wealth is what, accumulating
yeah,
things is where things get
yeah,
fucked up, because then someone wants
yeah,
to have all the cookies.
exactly. When it wasn't about having all the cookies, it was about having all the knowledge.
Mm.
If you could have accumulation of knowledge instead of accumulation of wealth, that means now your old people are now commodifiable. Because that
Mm.
old man can say, "Hey, if you want to hear a story about how those little apostle birds connect with that tree or with those other birds, I'll tell you the story if you go and catch me a kangaroo."
Mm.
And then you can own that story.
Mm.
So then you owning intellectual property rights through stories.
Mm.
And then they're allowed to then tell those stories, which then gives them the right to go and ask a young fella to go and catch a kangaroo for them for that story.
And it guarantees that respect of the elders, right? Like you said,
Yep.
because in Western society, they're kind of the older
Yeah,
people
it's
are.
shoved into a nursing home, bro.
Yeah, yeah. The brunt of the jokes.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
You've been used up. You've
yeah,
you're no longer the pack horse that we need anymore, and
yeah.
you're just like a racehorse. We
Yeah.
just send you off to the racehorse place
Pay
where all the other racehorse goes to.
pay someone else to look after you while you dwindle away and the spark goes
That
out.
that's it,
Ah,
and then
horrible, isn't
and
it?
get just let the family know when they're just about to die.
Yeah, we'll all come around the bed and hold hands and
Yeah, yeah, and say,
oh
I'm gonna
man.
miss you, Grandma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where old people are supposed to be there teaching young children.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you look at old people these days, man, in nursing homes, they know fuck all about nothing
Mm,
because
yeah.
they've been working in the same job their whole life.
Yeah. 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 Well,
You know,
that's true. And they've also been, that's a different conversation, but I think that a lot of the medications and the way people eat does a lot of
yeah,
terrible things to your brain, and there's a lot of degenerative
definitely.
diseases like Alzheimer's and shit that didn't used to exist.
Yeah.
And
And like
we're
a butter, eh? So, margarine.
margarine,
Mar-
yeah. Well, well,
is,
well,
is, is a massive cause of
yeah.
Alzheimer's.
Yeah, it is, and it's vegetable or yeah, seed oils in general,
Yeah,
poorly
yeah,
processed seed oils, and there's heaps of shit that we just shouldn't be eating
yeah.
that people are eating.
That's
So,
it. It's
brother,
it's what
I watching your page, I was unaware of all of this stuff. So this is a really like pleasant surprise to me. I just saw your content. I'd flicked through. I saw an interesting guy with a good perspective. You're a character. This has been a
yeah.
pretty serious conversation about some pretty important things. But I love your easygoing nature and the way you're very creative as well, brother. So you
Yeah,
know,
cheers. Yeah, like I mean, I like to make music and stuff like that as well.
yeah,
I record all my music in a old motorbike trailer
yeah,
or in a
right,
trailer here.
yeah. What
I
kind of
make all
music?
my own music. A lot of like hip hop. I like to make
Hmm.
hip hop, electro dance music, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I make it all on FL Studio and then just write all my own lyrics and just record it all. So everything's done by me here. It might not be the greatest quality, but I think it's the rawest rap form of rap, and that's what rap is supposed to be.
It
It's
is
a
storytelling. And are you putting
yes,
it up somewhere
yeah. Check it out on YouTube, man. I'm on
on
YouTube
YouTube?
under Gurridulya.
Gurridulya? Okay.
Um, yeah, and I've got this one spit there from when did that fire on the road
Oh yeah.
in in 2020.
Yeah.
So check that one out. The 50 police officers rocked up. Then I just did this spit, and I tell you what, police are not prepared for someone to spit a freestyle at them. Especially just like saying like First Nations, the birthplaces of burnt patience in a prison system made for division to hurt races.
Woo.
Murder cases never get heard. Face it. This is absurd. Do we deserve to be hated?
Oof.
They were just like, what
Fire.
the, and all they did, like, they were expecting me to be violent, but they didn't expect me to just like give it to them in a rap.
Yeah.
It made them idea what to do about that situation. They were just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's power through music, man. Like that's one of the rawest raps that I reckon will go down in hip hop history as one of the greatest resistance spits.
Mm.
Because it was under the pump, man. I was there. I thought I was going to get arrested and shit. I'm just like, well, I'm just going to give it. And so I have, you, you have this thing inside of you that it's just like, just do it. Just do it.
Bro, can you send me that track so I could play it? Because I play an intro song at the start of every episode. I can
Yep.
play it at the start of this episode when I launch it. A section
Yep.
of it. I can just play like a minute of it or 30 seconds or a minute of it or something like that.
Yeah.
After this,
Yep.
send it to me if you can, because I'll
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
great
I'll send you the link, man.
it's a
And
great way
have a
to
look at it.
feature music and just to prequel the conversation as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm on Spotify as well and YouTube,
Okay.
iTunes and stuff as well under Gurridulya.
Okay.
You can check out a few of my different tracks and that it's like a story of me being here. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I had a common assault case put on me because they tried to entrap me to get me kicked out of here. So they ended up getting a common assault case against me, and like 600 days went past, and um, the judge basically, they said if I pled guilty, then I wouldn't get a criminal conviction and just a minimum fine. And I'm like, he's run me around the circus all this time just to say that.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting $100 fine and no criminal recorded conviction. And the judge didn't even tell me to not do it again because all I did was open the car door with an Aboriginal person come into my home just across the road from here
Yeah.
at the entrance. And I'm like, what are you doing in here, bros? So I tried to pull him out of the car to see who he was. They're like standing him up and say, what you doing in my home, bros? And so they got a common assault against me. But that, like, I shook hands with him after that
Yeah.
indicate altercation, and then his boss forced him to put in a common assault case.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, because he
So the
worked for
judge,
the he worked for the mining
yeah, yeah,
company.
worked for the mining company. They used him as bait to try and bait me
Oh,
because I put a video up a few months before that and said like any Aboriginal that comes in here unannounced, then you are subject to tribal law. So
yeah.
they wanted me to go tribal law on him, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
to
Right.
entrap me.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't give it to them. I just made him look stupid.
Yeah.
And so the judge looked at me and just went, you did you shake his hand? And I was like, yes, Your Honor. And he just shook his head. He knew I was getting screwed over by the mining company.
Yeah.
So he turned around and he goes, um, I acknowledge you as a proud Aboriginal man, and I congratulate you on your service to the community.
Wow.
Like, I'm in here for common assault. This lad's like congratulating me. What's going on here? So,
It's a
like,
testament to how you hold yourself, right? It matters
yeah,
how you speak,
yeah.
and that way
Integrity
you
is
would.
everything, man.
Yeah, yeah, integrity and the way we hold ourselves, and this is why reading books and increasing your vocabulary, like it matters, right? Not so you can show
Yeah,
off and show people, oh, no big words, but it just matters when you're able to articulate yourself in a certain way.
yes,
People can see you for who you are because we are
yeah,
people. We language is important, right? Language
yes,
is
yeah,
important. So I believe
yeah,
that when you can increase your vocabulary and your language, you can express yourself better. People can
yeah,
see you clearer, and it just it
definitely.
just it helps.
Yeah, definitely. Like I rebuilt my Witty language. So ngaya wada Witty, ngaya ngutina wada Witty. Like I rebuilt it, did a dictionary, and I recorded all the words, and
Wow.
I made a Witty website. So it's on wirdi.com.au, witty.com.au.
Wow.
Check it out if you want. It's the website that I created, and so then I used my own language against them when I got here. I actually didn't speak any English. When they rocked up here, I just said to them, "Ngaya wada Witty, ngaya gara wada English." And then I had someone next to me go to the police, well, if you can't understand him, then I suggest you go and get a translator, because under your own laws, you can't get free, prior, and informed consent from him without a translator. They
Yeah.
spent 3 months trying to look for a Witty translator or a Biri translator. I'm like, you're not gonna find one. So I got them into this situation where we had to sort out all these little disputes. Like my old man was doing burnouts around one of the security because they kept sitting in front of our camp, and he just got pissed off and just started doing a burnout. So he got a fine, $500 fine for dangerous driving and shit. And
Out
so
the
I had to
bush.
start, yeah, yeah, in the bush. Like they just fucking
Yeah.
us over because the mining company was pressuring them.
Yeah.
So we got to a decision. I sat down with the inspector and the senior sergeant, and I said to them, I'm going to speak to you in English about civil matters. But if you want to talk about the ceremony, Naya Wadaridi, go and get yourself a translator. You don't understand it. And they said, yep, that's fine.
Yeah.
I got that on video, bro. Verbal contract. They've never talked about the ceremony ever
Wow.
since, because they
Now,
need a translator.
yeah. Yeah.
So, it's using their own laws against them through language, man.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I rebuilt language because I only learned how to speak language because, crazy story, my ex-girlfriend comes from Bosnia. So I ended up moving to Bosnia in 2000 at the end of 2015, into midway 2016. And so I ended up learning Bosnian, Serbian while I was there because no one else spoke English.
Yeah, right.
And so what that had done is that switched something over into my mind where I now had able to learn a second language.
Yeah.
And because Serbian Bosnian is all ah, e, u, that's like our vowels as well, are all
Yeah.
ah, e, u. So then when I came back to Australia and started learning Gurri language, I was like, it's all sticking.
That's
It's all
cool.
going into my mind and sticking
Yeah.
because it's all the same as Serbian,
Yeah, right.
except they just got Syllabic writing. And it's like they write it how they say it and they say it how they write it. So I
Mm.
did that with Riddy as well because there's been no formal way of writing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've created a phonetic alphabet.
Yeah.
And so now you read it how you say it and you say it how you read it. All A's are and all U's are U.
Mm-hmm.
Because English language is stupid. You could have cut, which is CUT, and then you could have put, which is
Yeah.
PUT. You
Bro,
see how stupid?
have you seen, I think he's called the Baron
Okay.
on Instagram. I'll send you his
I think,
big redhead fella with a beard
okay.
and shit. But I'll send you some of his shit.
Yep.
And he does all this stuff on the alphabet. Like he does all
Yep.
these real all his content's about how stupid the English language is.
Yeah.
Real funny and like really clever
Yeah.
as well. I'll send you some of his shit. I think you'll fucking enjoy it. It's
Yeah. And
quite funny, man. And
English
look,
language is one of those
it's fucked.
weird language, you
I'm
know what I mean? Like
glad I learned it as a baby because it'd be
yes.
so hard to learn as an adult, man. Like
Yep.
far
And
out.
that's why I don't get picky at people that are only just learning English. But I'm
Mm.
like, man, you're even smart enough to just get it,
Yeah,
let
yeah.
alone like we don't even realize we just grew up with it, you know what I mean? So it's
Well, we're
just
so arrogant, we don't even try to learn other languages. Most of us, we just go there and hope that someone speaks English.
yeah, and that's the privilegedness of English.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That even us as Indigenous people, the moment that you go overseas, you realize the most strongest thing that you have is the English language.
yeah, yeah.
Even though, like, I've been to Amsterdam 3 times, I've been to Thailand 3 times, I've been all through Eastern Europe,
Mm,
and the number one thing that you get privilege from is speaking English.
mm.
You know, because I would just look like a gypsy to them if I didn't speak English.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The moment that I speak English is the moment they're like, "Oh, Australia," But like the whole town of Dobboy was all calling me the Aborigine, the Aborigine. I was the only dark-skinned person in the whole town, man. You know what I
Aborigine.
mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I tell you what, I didn't receive one bit of racism while I was there.
Mm.
In Bosnia, they hate each other. Like Serbs hate Bosnians and Bosnians hate Serbs, but they don't hate Aboriginal people. You know,
Yeah,
they'll have this fight of, oh, Serbian Orthodox is older than Islam or Islam is better. And I'm like, sorry, Aboriginal culture trumps all of that because we've been here since the dawn of time. And they're all
yeah.
like, yeah, duh. Duh.
Hey,
So,
look, bro,
yeah,
I would actually love to tee up another one of these because there's a heap of shit that I think we could go into and talk about that we didn't even get to touch on today. I try and
yeah,
keep
man,
these
for
to
sure.
about an hour and a half. So if you're happy, we'll tee up another one, brother, because I want to follow
Yep,
this. I want to follow what you're doing anyway. I think that the listeners would love to hear how things progress and unfold as well. I think it's really
yep,
important what you're doing, and I love that
yeah,
you've found your passion and that you've found your purpose, mate. And that
yeah,
alone inspires me. That's what I'm all about. Like
yep.
living with passion,
And
living with purpose, inspiring others, giving back to people, and just trying to be
yep,
authentic and have live with integrity. Those things
100.
I
Yep,
think is everything, mate. And you're
yep.
certainly doing that. So I really appreciate you.
Yeah, cheers, brother. Like any of your listeners are more than welcome to come out to Watanungu. We're always open. We got no doors, so we're always open.
Yeah.
And I'm more than willing to, teach people things while they're here. I like teaching people things. So that's
Mm.
just it's the on-flow effect of what happens when people come here. So they're
Well, that's
more than welcome.
one of the things I noticed on your Instagram page as well. Very knowledgeable about the land and about the plants and about the animals and about the culture. So for people who wanted to see that, it's Coods Mac on Instagram. I'll tag you when I put up these clips on my Instagram as well, so people will be able to get hold of you. And
Yep.
and what is it on YouTube? Coods Mac,
On YouTube, it's Gurridulya.
Gurridulya.
It should be under Gurridula.
Yep. Righto.
which means wedge-tail eagle in our language.
Which virtual eagle, beautiful, love it, brother. I'm gonna get you out here for a second. I'll get you just to hang around for 1 minute after I stop recording, and then
Yep.
we'll have a quick yarn with you. But thanks for your time today, and yeah, I've absolutely loved your story, bro.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having us on, man.
All right, bro. Peace.